Hit it.
All right, Michael and Katelyn, we are so glad you're here.
You're really good.
Dearly beloved who are gathered.
In the sight of God and these witnesses.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's going to sound so stiff. Okay. Michael and Katelyn, they are Jill's and my best friends. We met in college, and we've grown our businesses and our friendships side by side since then. They've been truly integral in every business we've had, to the point where like people think that we're business partners on things we're not. It's both awesome and funny. Michael and Katelyn have been wedding photographers. They've been church founders, real estate developers. But at their core, I would say you guys are community builders. And I think they're so amazing at building community because they have the gift and are masters of connecting with people. Most recently, they have founded an alternative school called Acton Academy West End, which takes an innovative approach to education that celebrates creative freedom, personal responsibility, and the pursuit of one's life purpose. We have had the deep honor of walking through some of life's hardest seasons together, as well as celebrating some of our biggest wins. So Jill and I often joke you guys are the most famous and successful entrepreneurs we know. It's probably true. No. And for this reason and many more, we are really, really glad to have you guys on The Baker and the Farmer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel honored to be. I've been watching from the distance, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we got invited on. This is huge.
It was only a matter of time.
Only a matter of time. So excited.
Awesome. Daniel, well, there's a lot of things we want to talk to you guys about. But first, we wanted to start with talking about Acton. My experience of alternative schools is that there are, one, a lot of options, and two, a growing demand, especially since COVID. I tried to look up like actual stats on this. I wasn't able to find anything that was consistent. I saw numbers across the board. I averaged it to like 20% increase in a demand for, 20% increase in alternative schools since 2019.
Yeah.
And 2019, of course, being pre-COVID. So I think it's a really interesting topic. I think it's really cool the route y'all have taken with Acton. So could you guys tell us a little bit about Acton, your roles there, what it is, and why you chose that model?
Yeah. I think it's fascinating thinking back where we are located in Goochland County outside of Richmond. And so we get a lot of the Richmond data. Like, I don't know nationwide, but I'll send Katelyn articles all the time of like Richmond city schools and, you know, the percentage of students that are leaving those schools to either go to private or homeschool. And again, yes, it is exponentially grown over the COVID years. When we applied for Acton to be an Acton owner, what year was that?
2019 was like the start. We might have applied in 2020, but we found out about it in 2019.
Right.
You're ahead of the curve.
And since then they've had, I mean, it's like 3,000 people apply.
People just trying to start because the demand is, and it's not just like people pulling. I think there was 1 million. This was rough, but like over 1 million families in the country that were like, no more public school. Just pulled them out. But then the teachers, the Henrico stats about the teacher vacancies, like people that are just walking away. And it just shows you not only is there a need and something's not going well, but it shows us that like, I think we can feel like we have a desire for our kids and we have a desire for our community, and we know other people, most of them being entrepreneurs, which is interesting.
Yeah. That have chosen Acton.
Yes. They want, oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about here. 'Cause like, we're realizing like we're uniting like-minded parents more than anything else.
Right. And I think as we start, an important thing that we always like to say, because when we start this conversation, where they're like, what are you doing now? Or like, you're not photographing as many weddings. And we say that we've started like a homeschool co-op is what the state of Virginia views us as. And there are certain people that will be like, oh, so you hate teachers.
Like, no.
Whoa, yeah. Like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Katelyn and I both went to public school all through elementary, middle, high school. Another important factor of this is that it's not just Katelyn and I, that Katelyn's sister Emily and our brother-in-law Joe co-own the school with us, and so a huge part of the team. But yeah, very important to say, like, we love public school, we love private school, we love the idea of school choice. And so that was a big part for us to be able to have an option of something that we could offer our children as another alternative.
Yeah, I think we realize, like, as entrepreneurs, the freedom we have and the power we have to, like, design our own life and the responsibility that we have willingly stepped into. We just want our children, they're so capable if we give them a chance to try things out, fail, but have a lot of responsibility put on them, but also have freedom. We're like, there's got to be a better way. It was like traditional school, which could be private or public. There's a model, and it's that you tell them, they memorize, they test, they regurgitate, you move on to the next set of curriculum. And then that's the pattern until you get to this marker of you graduated. Now you're going to do that again, but you're going to go to college. And he has a background in youth ministry. We have all these people in our life. We watch them. I even watch some of our college friends graduate, and in their mid-30s, they're going back to school to change careers. Why? Because they went to college, no idea what their passion was, no idea what their contribution to the world and their gifting and their calling would be. I'm like, what if our children could spend 12 years, if they're going to be out of our home, I want them to be pursuing what gift the Lord has given them. So how can we do that? We run a big business. I can't homeschool. You don't want to homeschool.
Right.
How can we give them this experience? And literally, I found Acton through a friend. Said, you need to read this book. It's called Courage to Grow. It tells the story of Acton. And if you read that book, you're either going to read it and get emotional because it's literally exactly what you dream of for your children and you didn't know it existed, or you're going to read it and be like, these people are crazy. Give me the test. Give me the SOLs. Give me everything. I'm not going to go down that route. And so I read the book, brought it to Michael. It's actually a funny story. Brought it to Michael. We have a very fascinating dynamic. We've spent a lot of time and money working through this dynamic. He thought I was coming to him saying, hey, this is going to be your thing. Welcome to the conversation.
I have made up this story for a while that Katelyn thinks that I don't work hard enough, or I should be doing more, or could be doing more. Mm-hmm. And, we've talked about how she is just such a go-getter and very successful at what she does for many reasons. And so I heard, like, where she came and she said, I found where Evie's going to go to I found where Evie's going to go to school. And I'm like, great, where is it? She's like, well, there isn't one. We're going to start it and you're going to run it.
Well, I didn't say you're going to run it. I said, I think you might really like this. Oh, and the wheels fell off and we didn't talk about this for months.
How old are your children at this time?
Evie would
have been 4.
4. So we had 2 years to decide we're going to do it. To find a location, to start a school, to market it, we had 2 years.
And again, at that point, I'm like, we did public school and we turned out all right. Like, and the public schools in our county are great. And
They are, yeah.
And then there are great private schools. I'm like, we're not even going to tour anywhere else? Like, shouldn't we just see what the options are? And she's like, no, this is it. We're going to start it.
But here's the thing. It's a pretty radical approach. Like, this
give
morning,
us some of the. I think it would be helpful for anyone listening to
understand.
Because I've tried to explain your school to other people, and
hard.
I am like, let me just give you an example of something they do.
They vote on everything.
Yeah, like they voted to have lunch. Like the 5-year-olds voted to have lunch at 10 a.m. So they eat lunch at 10 a.m. for this semester or whatever.
Tell them what this morning was. Just this morning.
Well, I think the most important thing about this is language and context, and so when we think about language. In a traditional school, you have teachers. There are no teachers at Acton. We have guides. And the first rule of a guide is that you're not allowed to answer a question. So if a learner, another language thing, we don't call them students, we don't call them children, we call them learners or heroes. If a hero or a learner comes up to me and says, what should I be working on? I'm not allowed to answer that question. I can't say, it's core skill time. Do you want to go look at your math, or whatever?
What are your goals?
I will say, what goals did you set for this week? What does the schedule say that we're working on currently? And schedules are posted all over the room. And as you do this, we're in week 13, 14 of this year, and they're not coming and asking us questions anymore. they realize I can go and ask Mr. Michael a question, but he's not going to answer it for me. So
it calls them into like self-responsibility.
Yes. Right. And so we have this phrase.
Versus tell me what to do.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so many of them are conditioned, just tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there are videos of, what's his name? Malcolm Gladwell or Gary Vaynerchuk or people, famous entrepreneurs online. And they're like, you know, would you rather have someone who has been doing this for 12 years of their upbringing, education, who can figure things out? Self-direct, yeah, things like that. Or do you want someone who's just going to keep coming back to you like, okay, what do you want me to do now?
Right.
And so...
And if you're an entrepreneur, you may have had... There's two different types of employees,
yes.
right?
Yes.
There's the ones that are like, you can set them loose, you can give them the goals, and you can... Maybe they might make a few mistakes here and there, but you can trust them to see it. And then there's the one that's like, okay, I got one task done. What do I do now?
Yes.
You know?
You want the person to come back and be like, hey, I started this new thing. Is that okay? You're like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And if this is what's so cool. Probably 7 weeks ago, you know, we started a new studio. We're doubling in size every year.
That's another language thing.
The studio, it's not a classroom. It feels like a startup.
So we got studio, classroom, guide teacher,
like
Heroes.
hero
and
/ learner. Are some heroes and some learners? Like
No, it's...
So
need to hero up.
everyone's on their... Go ahead. Well, every child and parent, every learner, everyone on the planet is on their own hero's journey. So from a faith perspective, it's the story that God's writing in your life. From an Acton perspective, it is the challenges and the ups and downs and the failures and the wins that are all working together to lead you and build you into the person that you're called to be. And we are showing these learners, you know, everything that you go through is a part of the story. And you are going to have, you're going to have things that are coming really natural to you, right? You're really good at this, but you're really not great at that. And we have ways that we teach them, like, that is not a weakness to you. That is going to be one of your greatest strengths. And so, what a great thing to learn in life, because when, you know, their life falls apart at 21 or 26, or like they've been taught for 12 years that it's just a part of my hero's journey. Like I'm on this journey to become who I've always been destined to be. And, it is so cool to see learners that are starting to really grasp that. But when you start a new studio, that concept of a hero's journey and the concept of being self-directed is not just like this automatic thing. The culture takes months. And we just recently, in the last few weeks, the Discovery Studio, which are 5 or 6 to 10-year-old, 11-year-olds almost, that's our older studio that was brand new this year. So some of our learners from last year moved up. They were struggling. Our guides were in tears on a phone call. We were doing our weekly team recap. They weren't getting it, but something has shifted. And the guide this week on the call, Ariel, she's wonderful. She's brand new as well. She was like, guys, I just sit back and they run the show. So this morning, for example, they have town hall meetings. They have slips of paper that they write during the week of issues they want to bring to the group, because the justice system of like, how do you do behavior? It's all run by the learners. They've made promises and contracts they've signed to each other. And if they're breaking the contract, they all vote on how to hold that person accountable.
So they do a town hall every week or
every Friday.
Friday.
And it's not just frustrations or grievances. It can be things they want to celebrate or things like that. And so like this morning, they do studio maintenance in the afternoon. So like if you're there at 1:00 in the afternoon, the studio is a
disaster.
Wreck. And like there's cardboard everywhere, paper cut up, like they're working on projects and things. And then at 2:15, from 2:15 to 2:35, this 20-minute window, they are cleaning the studio, and they all have different roles that they do, and that rotates throughout the semester. And
they have overseers or champions that tell them whether or not they're doing a good job. But it's not an adult. The adult is not a part of that.
And so like this morning, there was a slip of paper that said, you know, the people taking out the trash aren't doing their job correctly. And so then we talked about it, and they talked about
Who gave that feedback? One of the students?
One of the learners, yeah.
Learners,
Wait,
sorry.
it was Micah. It was Micah, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Your nephew.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and that was his first like slip that he had ever submitted. And
Go
so,
Micah.
yeah, it was really big for him. We have a lot of older girls that have kind of been
The mother hens.
We call them sheepdogs.
Yes, sheepdog. Sheepdog. Another term.
Another term. Sheepdogs that kind of lead the studio, and they have been kind of leading that town hall experience, and they are better at writing and more confident in that, and so they're the ones that are making suggestions on things they see. So for Micah to say that this morning was a
huge
step
step
out in confidence for him, and it was a great discussion. They were talking about, well, we do the trash, and then someone, like, after studio maintenance is done, if someone throws something else in there, it's not that I didn't do my job. It's that it's still a trash can after studio maintenance is done. So, like, people can still put trash in it later on. And so it was just more of a clarification conversation.
Go, Micah, stepping up.
we-
Yeah, sorry, Daniel.
Just
go ahead.
just to interject real quick.
Sorry, we can really
I
get on a
think
roll
if
here.
someone's hearing this for the first time,
Yes.
it's like,
What?
this is radical.
Oh, yeah.
Could you step back and hit the framework of Acton? Is this something unique to, I know the answer to some of these questions, but
Sure.
is this unique to Virginia?
Sure.
Can this be found
Oh,
in
yes,
California?
right.
Yeah, I feel like
Right.
the origin
Who-
story, what I know of
Yes.
it's really fascinating. It helps give some
Who
context.
pioneered it?
Yes.
Is this cutting edge 2023, or has this been around?
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part to that, is this, as entrepreneurs, when people hear Michael and Katelyn doing this, is this dual purpose? Like, is this a money-making venture and you're schooling your children the way you want it to?
Right,
or
right.
How does that play into
Great
your business
question.
and household?
Do you want to do the background?
Why don't you do it?
Okay. So Acton was founded around 2010, I believe. Jeff and Laura Sandifer are a couple out of Austin, Texas. And in the book Courage to Grow that Laura Sandifer wrote, tells their story of how it was started in the first couple of years and struggles and wins and things like that. And there's a story in there that Jeff, the boys are in a Montessori school. And
His
they're
boys.
Like his boys, Jeff's sons and Laura's sons. And, they're thinking about taking them out of Montessori and putting them into the public school. And he goes and talks to, like, a high school teacher friend. And he says, when should I make the transition for the boys? And he says, do it as soon as possible. And he's like, why? He's like, because the more freedom they have once they go into a traditional school setting, it will feel very restrictive. And
If you change it on them now when they're young, they won't feel as restricted because they won't ever know the freedom that they could have had. And the guy was tearing up when he said
he
it.
started crying while he said it. And then he says, like, he's like, if I'm going to pull him out, he's like, do it as soon as possible. And so that's when Jeff went home, decided to create their own school and started this method. Jeff Sandifer was a professor at the Acton School of Business in Austin, and very big entrepreneurial family, big philanthropy family. And
Yeah, I feel like that's the interesting piece of it.
Yes.
Is that, like, the original founding families of this model, he was, like, super successful.
Oh,
like he could have sent his
yes.
kids to any school kind
Right.
of thing. Like, that wasn't there were not a lot of there weren't limiting factors like that for them.
Oh, they are, and they still to this day. This is what I love is like, and there's so many stories, and we got a time limit here. But we were like, we don't want to, like, attach our buggy to this horse. We don't know these people. Randomly, we were shooting a wedding in Aspen and found them in a restaurant in Aspen, Colorado.
The Sandifers?
The Sandifers at
No
dinner.
way.
They have we
While
knew
you were, like, weighing whether you should do the school or
we
not.
were
Literally,
about to submit
yes.
our application.
No way.
and I'm like,
Whoa.
guys, the Sandifers
That's
are.
definitely a sign from God.
Caitlin,
Yes.
Caitlin like
I have
walks
chills.
to,
I have chills.
Strong.
Yes.
Caitlin walks to the bathroom and is like, I think the Sandifers are in there. And I'm like, I'm going to go check.
Because you knew him by face? Like,
Yes,
you'd say-
yes, just yeah.
And
We just
so I
do.
walk through, and Caitlin won't say this, but Jill will say, Buddy's wife will say this. Caitlin is Instagram famous, we
Oh,
would
yeah.
say.
If you're on the gram, you don't know Caitlyn.
She
Come
is,
on.
That is not,
she is
guys.
recognizable out in public. And so when
No.
I walk
It happens
through,
all the time.
when I walk through and I confirm that it's them,
Yeah.
and they're literally sitting there eating dinner with their boys, I come back and I'm like, we are not talking to them. Like, there are times when we're out and we're like, it can be awkward if someone comes up and, like, starts a conversation with you. And so I'm like, we're going to
We
leave
like
them
that
alone.
though. I love it. I'd
No,
rather
I know.
someone.
Yes, and we encourage people to say hello to us.
Yes. But Michael's like, not tonight, Caitlin. Not
I'm like,
tonight.
let's leave them alone. Let's just.
And I'm like, oh, no. I have been praying for clarity. This is the clarity. Like, if they're jerks to us, we know we're not diving into this.
Right.
They were so kind. I walked in. Emily and Michael stood outside looking through the window,
I
being
wasn't
so
doing it.
nervous and weird.
You didn't go over.
I just went and I said, hey, we love what you've built. We believe in what you've built. We're entrepreneurs. We want freedom for our children. We're thinking about applying to be owners. And I just had to meet you. She started following me on Instagram, DM'd me and said it took a lot of courage for you to come up to us. And I'm so grateful you did. That started this relationship. We applied, they accepted us. And literally a week after we got home, the commercial property we bought went on the market. I drove past it and we bought it within like 2 weeks. And that was the beginning of all of this. And I look back and I love having the Acton network. There's 300 schools around the world. And there's been a decade of growth. So we're watching Acton grads go to Ivy League schools if they want to. We're seeing Acton grads just graduate and run the business that they started when they were 15, because you can just start a business whenever you want at Acton. Mm-hmm. They'll help you get an LLC. We'll help you spend time in the studio running your business, because why not? That's amazing. And so we know there's proof that this works. And I feel like the coolest part is that Laura and Jeff Sandiford, their sons have graduated. One is a Marine, and one is at, where is he? Tennessee.
Yes, not in Nashville.
What's
that?
the
Belmont.
No.
Sorry.
Where is he? I forget. But he's at Ivy League school. What's Ivy League school in Nashville?
In Tennessee?
No, is there not one?
Maybe not Ivy League.
Where is he?
We might need to cut
You're
this
asking
out.
the wrong two dudes.
Sorry.
We're just a baker and
Sorry,
a farmer.
we're just a baker and a farmer. Anyway,
Too far west for us.
We haven't left these hills
they
for
are.
some time.
Laura and Jeff are, they're in a level of wealth that we cannot even fathom, and they are still involved. And they're still involved in the Acton Network, not for money, because this is their passion. So I don't know if that gives you a backstory or not, but that it is run by good people that are passionate. And there are people doing this. I mean, one of the best schools to follow that's completely learner-led is in Lahore. Is that India? Pakistan. And they even let their learners run the parent emails, run the tuition, run the Instagram account. It's literally run completely by students. So that's the goal, is for us to have 40 some children in a room with one guide, and the guide just watches. And we've seen hints of that happening just the last few weeks, and it's really cool. So the question was about profitability and like business structure and
Yes. Is that part of the motivation for you all to enter into this space, is entrepreneurial, business wise, or is that separate from your business pursuits?
It's funny, when we first looked into this, that was a concept, because I've grown my business for 14 years and I'm the face of it. And I've said things like, I want an exit strategy. And if you scale an Acton to 150 learners, and you look at the metrics of it all, I mean, you should be bringing in, profiting hundreds of thousands of dollars after expense. I mean, it is a great business model, because the goal is very low staff. If your Acton needs tons of guides, then it's not really an Acton. So you need a space, and then the staffing, actually, once you get to a certain point, it is just profit as you start to grow these studios. But for us, now that we're in it, it's funny, now that we're like actually doing it, and we feel the community and the impact, and Michael has like truly stepped into this is his thing. He's not going to say that he's great at it, but
He didn't
everyone.
listen to you about it, though. He decided.
Yeah,
for you.
can we pause right there?
100%,
What happened between? Did you end up reading the book? When did you pick at the book and you're like, okay,
Yes,
this is
we
amazing.
went down that road, and I said we can do this if Joe and Em do it with us. So again, sister,
And that's your sister, yes,
sister and brother-in-law, and I was like, if we have a team doing this, like I don't know if you and Caitlin and I, have the capacity to. We don't even know what starting a school looks like. Like, what does that even mean?
We still don't actually.
And
it
it's funny, when we would like write emails to the county, I'm like, I'm going to spell something wrong and look like an idiot trying to start a school and can't even spell words. And so yeah, it's
we want
just,
to teach kids.
and so where are we going with that?
I mean, the question was, how did that end? And honestly, if we're being very transparent, we didn't talk about your role. We walked on eggshells.
Yeah.
But then the first week of school happened, and then the second week happened, and I started texting my sister, and I'm like, I think he likes this. And then we started seeing Michael take some initiative that we're like, oh, this is, it just felt like we found, not that there haven't been other things, but this truly was something that you were like, I'm going to sign myself up to do this coaching program so I can be even better at pouring into like when conflict arises. I mean, the guy that doesn't like conflict, that's his main job as the head of school, is to sit down when there is a conflict and help coach a child through finding their own solution. And he's very uniquely gifted in that. I mean, we've shed lots of happy tears over the fact that like it's just a perfect mix of like, you are like a camp counselor, but you want to have deep impact. You love the concept of coaching, which the Lord brought into our life 6 to 8 years ago. It's the marriage of, and you love kids and you love business and you love parents and you love community and you love fun people. And everything about Acton's gamified. Everything's a game. Everything's voting. Everything is like, it's so fun. Kids love coming to school. They don't want to be sick. They don't want to miss out. Everything about that is a perfect mix of Michael. And this is just like, I couldn't be in the studio. I've been in the studio to fill in.
It's a little bit of chaos.
It is
Controlled chaos.
It's like Lord of the Flies sometimes.
Uncontrolled chaos.
So
I think you brought up a good point, though, even just mentioning that I'm the head of school, just for structure, for understanding of how we do it. So I'm considered boots on the ground. And so I am at the school every day from 8:15 to drop off to 3:15 in the afternoon for pickup.
Huge life change for us.
Yes, from the
Working
freedom.
from home to you being gone.
Right. every
So much
day.
freedom to like, we lost the freedom.
Yeah. But I think we were expecting that with our kids going into school.
Yes, that they'd have
We're
a
like,
schedule.
We know that this is a transition. We're not going to be able to just go on a trip whenever we want. Like, there are expectations that Evie's going to be in school.
But ironically, with Acton, you totally can. We had a family just say, we want to move to California for like 3 weeks. Can we do that? Sure. Kid came back. It's self-directed. He flew through his stuff. There's no behind, he's on his own path, which is beautiful.
Yeah. Katelyn's role is all of our social media marketing.
I just do Instagram. That's my contribution.
It's her strength, and we let her run in her lane. Katelyn's sister Emily does all of our admin.
Which is a lot of work.
A lot of admin. She helps me a lot, keeps me straight. Funny enough, Emily is also the CEO of the photography business. And so just...
Of your photography business.
Yes.
Right. So
Okay.
Katelyn and Emily work together.
So when she's not running that multi-million-dollar business, she's handling all the parent concerns and all of tuition and all of, it's a lot.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
No,
It's a lot.
we're looking for a part-time person. If anyone...
She needs to give that roll up. It's too much, but
And what is Joe's role?
Joe does all the boring stuff, I call it. He does legal, lawyers, insurance.
however,
And I'm like, we have insurance, right? I'm the game maker. I have fun with everyone.
But wouldn't you say this week has been a cool use of his gifts with 360 reviews and staff?
Yeah,
and-
so we've just recently introduced peer 360 reviews, just taking the job description and on a scale of 1 to 6, like how do you feel like you're raking in these areas? And then we have 4 staff members currently, and so you rate everyone else as well. And so Joe is doing one-on-one kind of coaching sessions with everybody, like what's coming up from you? Are there any patterns you're noticing? Like, were you offended by anything? And then next Thursday on our Thursday night call, we'll do a debrief with the whole team.
And it's awesome because I never anticipated that our coaching experience and how we've grown like interpersonally, like parents are intrigued by that. And and you don't realize how unique that is to be able to talk through conflict and go deeper and be like, hey, do you realize what you're getting out of this? Do you realize like that your insecurities is actually being duplicated onto your child? Like all these things that we're getting to use in this new world. And I think with the staff, I just didn't even realize like, oh my gosh, we have a responsibility to help train them. So like Joe is doing these 360 reviews and he's like, I mean, it's just tears and it's great because we're helping these guides really dig into insecurities about themselves and how it shows up. And
it's fascinating because I get to lead parents, and so 3 times a year we have these parent brunches, and I will walk through concepts that I am introducing to the learners so that the parents have that language at home. And so the first one is always the idea of a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And so it is fascinating seeing young learners like 5, 6, 7 years old figure out what a fixed mindset is.
Yeah.
And I always give the example that I was a history major in college, thought I was going to be a high school history teacher, then go into a principal. So it's kind of funny that it's full circle that I'm kind of there now. But I always told people, like, I'm just not good at math. Like, I don't do math. And I don't know if I'm ever going to be good at math. And that's a fixed mindset that I have. And so whenever a learner would come up to me and say, hey, can you read this to me? I would say, I want to hear you try to sound it out. And they're like, well, I'm not good at reading. And then so that opens the door for me to ask more questions. Like, are you really not good at reading, or you're not good at reading yet? You know, or like, what do you think it would take to help you become a better reader? And just asking these questions for them to be like, all right, maybe I'm not.
Or looking in the room and saying, turn around and ask the studio. They'll pause, ask the studio, who is good, who has we call a stretchy rubber band, is reading. And we have videos of people raising their hand and be like, oh, Hannah will help you. Why don't you, let's go see if Hannah will help you read. Because it's multi-aged. We didn't mention that. It's all different ages, all in one room, which is one of the best aspects of it.
Yeah. It's funny. We were listening on the way here to Ben's podcast about the dairy farm. And it's funny to think about like these pendulum swings of, there's all these different ways that you can think about it, but I was always taught it with the idea of like resting and working, like these seasons we go through. And that can be a daily ritual of resting and working, or, you know, seasonal resting and working. But then also thinking of hearing him talk about like the way that they used to do things, you know, of raw milk and things like that before all of the
pasteurization.
Yes, that's the word I was
Yeah.
looking for. And so it's funny because I feel like we're in this pendulum swing of kind of going back to the one-room schoolhouse.
Yes,
you know,
the way America started education.
That it always was done, where you're in a studio with, you know, someone who's 7 years old, and my daughter's 5 years old, and she's watching this boy read, and she's like, I want that. Like,
she taught herself to read.
I want to figure out how to do that. And if she was in, and now Evie is 6 and first grade, quote unquote, and reading on a 3rd grade reading level.
She's reading chapter books without pictures, and that is not normal. And I have full expectation that like it's going to be different for every single child. But Evie did that because Jack could read, and Jack was her best friend last year. And so she taught herself to read, and she did it at her own pace, and she did it because it was gamified. She got to earn badges. She got to go to the next level. And when you say, like, do you see what you want for your children coming to fruition? Like, that's a great question, because I think what I see in Evie, like, yes, that's awesome that she's taught herself to read, but it's the process of her teaching herself how to read, and like the hurdles and the obstacles. Like, her biggest challenge last year was all emotional. It was all developing. She was becoming more aware of the world, more aware of friendships, more aware of like how you can get hurt in friendships, while also getting all this crazy academic knowledge and skyrocketing. It was overwhelming. And she was taught how to think through, like, my tears are a gift. What if I let myself feel what I need to feel? And what is true about me? How can I work through this? And from an anxiety and mental health perspective, that's the kind of time and intentionality. You don't get that in a traditional school system. So what my daughter learned academically seems like what the world would say
The
is
win.
like, Acton is good. Look, she can read at 3rd grade level. But for Michael and I, it's her mental endurance that grew last year that we're like, that's why she's at Acton.
and character
her
development.
character development changed drastically. And that's why she's at Acton. But the fact that she can read, that is a bonus. That's a perk.
Well, and I can't.
Yeah, are there?
Oh, go ahead.
I've heard you talk about a few. Like, it sounds like Acton holds benchmarks loosely or has none. So how does it?
Great
Like,
question.
how do you see? For somebody who might be thinking like, okay, everything they're saying is very interesting. I like a lot of these thoughts. How does that work? Because when I hear it, like, so our kids go to a classical Christian school, which has many perks, but it is very different than what you guys are talking about. one of the things that's very different is it's like super structured. It's very high churchy. There's, prayer, morning prayer. There's Latin prayers. It's, it's, I think it's
Sit at
really
your
awesome.
desk.
Yeah. Sit at your desk.
Yes.
Knox is learning a ton. It's great. And so is Monroe. But it is interesting because there's all kinds of benchmarks. They are trying to Monroe's a little bit like they would love for Monroe to be more proficient at math or whatever. I don't even know if that's true, babe, but something like that. As an example, is there any of that, or at what point do you start to say man, Johnny's 11 and he still doesn't like reading and isn't, how do you deal with encouragement for the student that isn't pushing themselves?
It's funny. We have a lot of parents, and even I remember the first year we were auditioning parents, and we could talk through the audition process.
What is that? Describe that as.
Parents applying.
Okay.
And so
Because really, the parents got to be a better fit
gotta
than
be in,
the
yeah.
learner. Yeah.
They got to get it.
They got to
Right.
get. They
That
gotta
could be a
trust the
major problem
process.
if the
right.
parents
Well,
don't get it.
and a lot of times we have, typically it's a mom who is very interested, and we're like, if we need to convince the dad, it's probably not a good fit. If we need to convince either one of them,
Yeah.
Oh, I have more questions now, but tell me about the benchmark. Cause
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
want to be
so
give me the interview.
right? Because I think, we were meeting with these parents, and one of the dads was like, "Yeah, it sounds great, but if there's not a teacher, how do they learn to read?" And I had to look at him and I'm like, I don't get it either. Like, I don't know. We've
We
never
actually
done
don't
it.
know if this is going to work, but you should still give us your money.
And so
This is year one. This
year,
is year.
I mean, year
Wow.
zero.
Convincing.
We're
and y'all
about,
still got them.
yeah,
and that dad now wants to be a guide.
Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome.
And so it is fascinating.
And his son or daughter know how to read?
Yes, she's
Yeah.
getting there. And this is what's fascinating. Acton is about engagement. If your child's not engaged, you're either going to need to leave. That's the 11-year-old that doesn't care about reading. And that's what's fascinating because, what people don't understand is if you can keep a child loving the process of learning, they will learn how to read, because you have to learn how to read the book about dolphins, because that kid's obsessed with dolphins. But if Pokemon, right? Who cares if they're reading a Pokemon book or a dolphin book? If they're learning how to read because they're passionate about it, then that they're going to learn what they need to learn. It's an engagement issue. If you have a way to get kicked out of Acton is to have a persistent victim mindset and to sit in a corner and say, woe is me. You literally can't be an Acton learner if you can't get out of that. And for some learners, I'm sure that will be a problem. We've had to really push a few learners to get out of that mindset to see, can you make it at Acton? You have to be self-directed. And so it is a complete mindset shift to say, well, if they hit 11 and they're not reading, it's right, but let's think about why that could be. It's because they're probably not engaged. We just had a post today, actually, in our parent, we have an app that, all these updates come through, pictures and videos and parents doing events. It's really cool. Today, one of the guides posted a picture of a little guy. His name's Waters, and their parents are awesome. I'm sure they wouldn't mind us sharing his story.
Great.
They share it publicly. But Waters, the first year was avoided Washika. Washika is a Montessori reading program, and he avoided it. And
It's something y'all do at Acton?
Yes.
Okay.
He resisted the Washika drawers. That's how you learn how to read when you're in Spark Studio. In a traditional setting, he would not have hit the mark for what he should be doing. But instead of telling him or letting him know, pushing him so he can keep up with what he should be doing, instead of shooting on him
or shaming him,
we realize, you know what, he's not doing that, but he loves brain builders. He loves the math stuff. Let's not push him. Let's see what happens if we don't put the pressure on and we let him grow at his own rate. He was 5. That is young. But a lot of times we put a lot of pressure on kids that doesn't need to be there, right? Because who cares if a child reads at 5 or if he learns it at 7? Does it really matter? So we left it alone. And he just got his Aqua badge today. And Miss Rachel did a post. She was like, he is one of the best examples of self-directed, self-guided learning. If you let a child keep the love for learning and not shame them into this level of you don't measure up. Look where all those learners are. You're not there yet. If you strip that all away, the learning happens because the engagement, it remains. So Waters is doing exactly what we thought he should be doing, but we stripped away the shoulds and let him grow at his own pace. And he's thriving, and now he's teaching other kids how to read. So it's like, that is an important question. Like, what if they don't hit the mark? And our question back to that is, who has defined your marks? Because a lot of times when you start to get to the bottom of it, it is all based on the benchmarks of the state, the benchmarks of SOLs, the benchmarks that were like, but who determined what a successful human needs to be? Who said it? Someone in the Acton world said that a child that learns basic reading, and basic math in this day and age, the level of what they need to thrive and be a successful human is so different than what you hear from a curriculum state standard perspective. And it's not that we're lowering the bar, we're just looking at a completely different bar.
Well,
so
and
problem solving.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, go ahead. Problem solving.
Problem solving
Well,
is... go ahead.
one thing I would say, just to summarize what I hear you guys saying, it sounds like instead of teaching a student facts they need to know in the world,
Yes.
you're basically creating an environment where these students are empowered to learn the art of learning. And that's the
Yes.
lifelong.
It's on the website.
Okay, yeah, I might
That's
have
literally
read your
perfect.
website. That seems like the difference, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Even between, not that Knox and Monroe aren't learning that too.
Oh,
at
right,
their
right,
school,
right.
but I think that's
a different approach.
Way more of a focus
Yes.
at y'all school, which I think that's really compelling, especially when you talk about who defines where the benchmarks land and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think a good point of that is it's not that they're not being taught something. We are Montessori based, and if you're not familiar with what Montessori is, it's a very hands-on, self-directed learning. But we also add in technology, where Montessori is pretty anti-technology. Every learner in our studio has an iPad.
Michael would never start a school that was anti-technology.
Yes, no, we need some technology.
Just a little side about Michael.
Yes.
Guaranteed it's going to have technology.
Right.
And so everybody has these world-class apps. There's an app called Khan Academy. And so, it goes from kindergarten math through calculus, and so as they progress, but they're progressing at their own pace. And that goes back to Evie. I can't imagine Evie, who is reading at a third grade level, who should be in first grade. I just feel like she would be bored out of her mind in traditional school, waiting for everyone else to catch up, so she can run, and maybe she slows down and stays at a third grade level for a while, and that's fine too. Because, when we think about am I at a 37-year-old level of knowledge for where I should be right now? And I think about, I remember watching Buddy go through the process of county regulations and developing things, whether it's the farm in the event venue or the farm across the road. And we learned that as we went, you know?
Yeah.
I had friends ask me, how do you know how to do this? I'm like,
Right.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm figuring
We're
this out right
figuring it
now.
How do you learn how to do anything?
Right.
So
yeah.
they've got to learn how to learn, and you lose the ability to learn how to learn when you're forced into these, you should be at this level. You should be at that level.
Dan
Sit
hit him
down.
with the
Right.
Charlie Munger quote that we were talking about.
Oh no.
Was that you and I?
Yeah, we were definitely talking
He's
about
like, it is
Munger.
too late for
piano,
that.
the piano one. I think I got it. I'm trying to.
Yeah,
I thought you
by
would
all
have it.
means.
I think so. Charlie Munger, recently died at 99.
Yes.
Warren Buffett's
Buffett's
business
Right
partner.
hand,
Yes.
yeah.
There's this podcast Daniel and I listened to, My First Million. They had a great quote from him that they highlighted on it, where somebody asked Munger, "Do you know how to play the piano?" And the normal answer, if you don't know how to play piano, would be like, "No, I don't know how to play the piano." And Munger's answer was, "I don't know, I haven't tried yet."
Yes.
That's
That's
like
so
I
good.
feel like that's an Acton answer,
Yes.
basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Versus that what were the two mindsets you said? The
Growth mindset or fixed mindset.
yeah, fixed would be
Yep.
I don't know how to play
I don't know
piano.
how to-
Growth would
no,
be
I
I
can't
don't
do
know, I
that.
haven't tried yet.
Yeah.
If people are listening and they're really compelled by this sort of schooling approach, what is the accessibility for a listener to Acton? And that's the first part of the question. And then the second part of the question is this like a Chick-fil-A setup where you have to be selected as an owner operator? You said you had to, apply, or, if Buddy wanted to start one here in Lexington. What's the barrier to entry for someone starting a school like this? They equip you with a guidebook.
Yes.
Are you delight directed learning how to be head of school too?
Sure.
So accessibility, and then how do you start one of these things?
Yeah. There's so many photographers out there that are starting Actons because they're watching our journey. Do you want to answer the
Sure.
setup?
The ActonAcademy.com is the overarching network website. We describe it to people as it is a network. It is not that we own a franchise of Acton. We do pay a network fee that is based off of how much money we bring in. That feels like a franchise fee, but that's just really putting money back into the network to help develop curriculum or ideas. We do these things called quests in the older studios, where it's a hands-on, tangible, project-based learning.
And that's pre-planned out and kind of done for us
Yes.
we call it a tool shed. And we basically have everything that's gone well in Acton. They've packaged it up and we're using it, but we don't have to use it. We could be faith-based. We
It's
don't
like
have
a
to be.
resource you can pull from.
Tap
There's
into.
so
And
much
That's what you're
freedom,
paying
though.
for is
Right.
that network, yeah.
But you do get selected.
Yes, there is an
Is that
application.
website also where you could find, like, so if I'm the person that's looking for an Acton, I can find them on that website.
Exactly, yes.
Yes.
And if I wanted to start one, same place.
Right, same
Yeah.
place to... The
Begin the
first step for
process.
everybody, whether you want to apply to run an Acton or send your kid to an Acton, you have to read Courage to Grow. That is like...
the bottom baseline, like
Yes.
start there because it'll be a repelling or it'll like really draw you in.
Right.
15,000 was, and I've almost viewed the 15,000 as like, you got to really mean this.
Got to have some buy-in.
Because during the pandemic,
So you had to pay $15,000 as the
15,000
launch fee to be
Right.
to start one.
yes,
Not to apply.
not to apply,
Once
no,
you were
to
accepted.
Yes, it's like a Chick-fil-A in that like you can't just start this as an investment. It's got to be, if you're going to own a Chick-fil-A, it's got to be your only thing. You got to be the manager. You got to be there every day because they want people that care about it. So that is a rule of Acton. Like you can't be an owner that just owns an Acton and isn't involved. They
Are
ask
you allowed to own multiple Actons?
You can. There's actually a woman in Virginia Beach that has 3. They have to be 20 minutes apart. We actually just met new owners of a Acton that's starting 20 minutes north of us, and it's actually going to be a faith-based Acton. They came to our business fair. We do a business fair where all of our learners had businesses, which is
How
hilarious.
does that feel to have an Acton opening up right up the road?
We really like them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool because we always thought like, oh, maybe we'll have multiple locations, and now that we're in it, we're like, no. We want a scaled location done really, really well. We want to build a campus. We want to custom build that from scratch. We want ours to just be super intentional. We don't want to have multiples. So it's awesome actually to have like-minded couple 30 minutes north building their own community because eventually now, and there's one on South Side. I mean, they're going to be everywhere.
Oh, so there's going to be a third. That's cool because you can kind of learn from each other then.
Yes,
Right.
and Ellie is one of our oldest learners. She's so gifted in writing. Like she reads stuff, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, that's unbelievable!" But a peer review, they have accountability partners, they have running partners. There's all this cool accountability. But
Oh, across the schools?
no, but we are going to do that for her. We hope that we can do that for
cool.
her because she's one of our oldest, and no one matches her level, so no one can peer review her really well.
She's great at peer reviewing the younger
Yes,
learners.
she is. Yes, she is. So, so that's cool because there might be someone 30 minutes north that has a learner that will virtually or even meet up in person. Like we could do field trips with them, and so we're excited about it. There is a Southside one. They have a different vibe, but we love them as well. We've met those owners. They have a very different background. That owner has a Harvard background. We're like the community acted like, let's be friends and buddy, and they're more like, let's be prestigious. That's how we describe it. But
I had one question to close us out of this before we transition.
Yeah.
Unless you had something.
Yeah, no, go.
Something my wife and I as our children get older, what has really hit us recently is, oh man, all we're trying to do is just equip our children.
Yes.
And we feel really strongly about homeschooling for our
Yes,
family. It's just
yes.
beautiful. It works, and Fawn's just wonderful to do it. But we probably won't do an Acton
Right.
unless Buddy starts one here in Lexington.
When you keep saying that, that's not a thing.
I know you hear it 3 times. You're just, but I'm
I'm
curious.
gonna wake up tomorrow like I must.
Don't have a
that.
fixed mindset, buddy.
I'm curious. It sounds like there's so many big parenting takeaways as you learn, and watch these child dynamics. Are there a few nuggets you could pass on, or just kind of considerations for parenting and to enable your children to be, or equip them to be more kind of delight directed in their learning, or any I hate to say tips or tricks. That's not what I mean. But any like big picture items that you would challenge parents to consider.
Sure. I think the idea of gamifying things. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, which is the fun one, and the thought of gamifying things, and being a youth pastor, and just trying to make faith more interesting, or whatever it may be. There are ways to engage with children that are so powerful for them to receive it and desire to receive it. We call them heroes, and the whole idea is this hero's journey, which is not anything that Acton came up with. I mean, it's back to like the Odyssey, and we talk to them about this process of like, you are a hero who leaves home. Like, you physically get out of your bed and you decide to leave your home, this place of comfort, and you go on this journey every single day. And you will meet guides along the way. And it's like, here I am, I'm your guide in the studio. But then you also have fellow travelers that you're traveling along with. And, this process that they go through, like we see it in Star Wars, like any major movie, they will start calling out, oh, he's the hero. Oh, that's his guide. Harry Potter and Dumbledore, whoever. Like, it's seen so many different places. But they choose to follow this calling. They realize that they are on a journey. They face trials. And in the studio, we talk about, maybe it's a physical trial of like trying to figure out math, or it's an internal trial of like fearing failure or criticizing yourself, or whatever that may be. And so we talk about those out loud. Like, what are the trials you're trying to overcome this week? What are the trials that you're facing? Slaying the giant, defeating the enemy, coming back out of your journey back home and getting to share what you've learned. And so this whole process, I talk about that with Evie multiple times a day, and engage with her in the sense of, hey, this is just your trial today. Like this book that you're reading, it has a lot of big words, and that is okay. And if you need help sounding things out, or if you need to check in with somebody, like, that's fine. Like, you have fellow travelers along you. Like, you have your guides that you can come to and check in with. But you're going to slay this giant. You're going to slay this thing that is daunting for you, and you're going to overcome it. And then you're going to get to share that with the next generation and the other fellow travelers. And so it is just this beautiful imagery that we utilize on a daily basis to talk through, hey, it sounds like you're having a trial. Like, are you ready to fight that, or are you going to run away from that? And you're fine to do either one. Like, there are trials that I run away from. Like, I don't want to deal with the county with this new land that we're looking at purchasing. Like, that is a big trial for Mr. Michael that he's going through and he's trying to figure out. And I have guides along the way. I have Buddy who has done something similar, and I can go to him and say, hey, this is what we're thinking. Is this stupid? Like, is this a bad idea? What would you do? And it works for all of us. It applies to everybody. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, just trying to make it a story, help them realize that they are a part of their own story, that we believe every child is a genius capable of changing the world. And so when you go in with that mindset and you see them hit trials and, I can't do math, I'm just not good at math, I'm never going to be good at math. It's like, hey, it is a trial today. And you can choose to try to figure it out, or we can wait till tomorrow. Maybe we come back to it tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Like, that's okay. Mm-hmm. And so, Yeah, I think that's really powerful for me. Is there anything you would say that you've seen?
Love that. Gamify.
Gamify.
Create this perspective of story.
Right.
I think that's interesting because it allows you to look at your, like for an adult.
Yes.
Certainly, I can't imagine for a little kid how advanced this is, but to look at your life objectively
Right.
and
Yes.
consider the decisions you're making without shame or expectations or anything. It just,
Yeah. Yes.
I think that is what a powerful tool
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
for anybody, but especially as a parent to a kid or just, encouraging. that in
We're
them.
looking
That's
at
awesome.
land to expand, and we were just walking out there, and I'm like, gosh, this is a big undertaking. Like, I hardly know anything about soils. Like, is this good soil for a drain field?
Just
I'm
so
like,
funny because you do know, because we've been through it before, but it's
like you tell yourself,
overwhelming.
I don't know what I'm doing. Like, we're not prepared for this.
You're real estate developers. I said it in the
I
intro.
know, yeah. Speak it into existence.
But we actually used the story of our commercial property and like it was a lot of hurdles. It was a lot of mistakes, a lot of like financial shocks. I mean, it drained us. It was financially drained us. And we told parents, we were honest. We were like, this is a part of our hero's journey. Like, this is one of the hardest things we've ever done as a couple with Joe and Em.
Purchasing the current space.
And just building the school and like doing Zoom calls with parents and being like, we're selling something that doesn't exist. I created an Instagram account and we purposefully just said like Eastern Goochland because we didn't want anyone to find where this property was. It looked like a disaster until 5 days before the school started. We bought a rental house and had to do the first week of school at a rancher in the middle of a neighborhood because the school didn't get approval from the county in time to start on time. Like, and we had to just pitch it and remarket it so parents trusted us. I'm like, what have we done? And like, look, and then to see the growth and to see learners that are like, there are some kids at the school that they are truly on their own path. And in any other setting, they would have been completely labeled, bullied, and we've created this culture. The learners have created a culture of like acceptance and like that child has something unique about him that I can learn from. It doesn't matter that he's not like the rest of the kids. And they just love each other. It's so beautiful. And I think like every time we get overwhelmed with our own hero's journey, something epic happens. Yeah. Some new threshold is crossed. And we're called to do this. And it's bigger than anything we've ever done.
Yeah, it's funny because of the business success has been online. And so it is when we were driving out here, we're like, do we have a brick and mortar business? And it's like, oh yeah, the school's brick and mortar, but it's like, it is next level when you, and like we're talking about vacations and it's like, gosh, I don't know if we can leave the school, or like,
yeah, we have this like baby. I'm sure that's how you guys feel. You have this like baby of a business that's like actually tangible and like in front of you. And mine has always been online course sales. That's so different.
I didn't think that'd be such a catalyst for you all, given your background. That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I had a sort of a transition to another topic, or another few topics. So I was thinking, a lot of folks that listen to the podcast are business owners or aspiring business owners. And there's a lot of things we could talk about in that realm. But I thought it would be fun to talk to you two because we've kind of hinted at this. You could look it up online, but Michael and Katelyn, in addition to the school, also own this photography business that is largely a photography education business.
Yes.
Where they sell online courses and lots of online resources for photographers that want to grow in the work that they're doing.
I led into this transition perfectly.
Yes, you did.
Yes,
We
you
did
d-
not
This
pre-plan
was not
this.
planned. So I wanted to ask a few questions about that because you guys co-founded that business together, shot weddings together for years, grew the online side of the business, got much bigger than you ever would have dreamed it would. So I know that was because we're best friends. I know a lot of the background of what it was like working together. And Jill and I were
see where
wedding
this is
photographers
going.
for a number of years. I think that there's a lot of folks listening that either are working with their spouse or dream of working with their spouse. I know you guys have done that so well. I mean, people know you're like a power couple. And I also know because I'm your best friend, you guys have struggled in seasons of life working together. So could you share maybe just like one or two things? Like maybe this is where we were and this is something where we found freedom. So this is where we got to the end of that road and made a change. What that looked like for you guys.
I'd love to hear your perspective first.
Yeah, I think
I just thought I'd throw up a softball.
Yeah.
No, yes. That's a great question. I think what's fascinating to me is I lived a lot of our early married years in the mindset of my job is to make Katelyn's life easier. And she was such a hard worker and so dedicated to excellence in what she was doing. And then I just tried to assist, like in whatever way I could. And not that there was anything wrong in that, but I think I wasn't pursuing my passions or what I desired. I think what I am gifted in aligned with that. Like I loved wedding days. Like I loved getting to know people. I would be best friends with the groomsmen when we left and it was fun. Like it's a party. So like, yeah, let's go. But yeah, I don't know. I think there was a level of when we switched to more online that, I'm not as involved in that. Katelyn is the course creator. When we first started, I was doing a lot of like the tech setup, which Emily has taken over.
Yeah, Emmy came in and we realized, oh, she's really good at this. And she's really driven. And I remember we went to her and we're like, would you like to be the CEO? Please be the CEO. Tell me what. And that was a big shift for me because I'm like, oh, I'm not CEO material, actually. I'm visionary. I'm the face, but like I can't check in on a team. I'm actually really bad at that. And when that happened, your job shifted. The constant was we couldn't ever find the role that you felt like you couldn't wait to do.
Right.
And Emmy has that. And she loves funnels. She loves the technical side. And I have that in just the vision casting and the new ideas and marketing. I love that stuff. Acton has been so cool to see Michael lean into like he wakes up thinking about stuff, and I think,
and that we still get to do that together. It is still a joy.
Yeah. And I have learned so much about like, he was never supposed to work like me. He was never supposed to be wired like me. And for years, I just put myself on a pedestal that like, well, if you're going to make something happen, you got to work just as hard. And he was working just as hard in his own way. And to be honest, he was living a more healthy lifestyle and I shamed him for it because I rode the wave of like, all the pressure's on me. I'm the breadwinner. I'm the face of everything. And like,
if I don't show up,
everything crumbles. Yeah. And when he says, and this is getting into a coaching session, but like our coach Julia would always say, just like you get so much out of saying, my job is to make Katelyn's life easier. And she would say, that is you playing small. And he would say, no, I'm serving her. I'm being a good husband. And he was, but like we were missing out. I remember so vividly, and I'll probably get emotional when I say it, but like, I remember being on a call once, a coaching call, and Julia crying and saying like, Michael, the world needs you to show up and be who you're called to be. Like the world,
and use your voice. Like the world is missing out on you. And like, we're in this season where you can look and be like, this is what she was talking about. She was talking about like what you have stepped into and taken a risk with. Like, that is what we've been missing out on. And I don't think that it was supposed to happen before now. I think this, like for such a time as this is exactly what the Lord had in store. And we had to go through all those years of struggling in our marriage, working together in order to like fully appreciate where we are now. Yeah. And I think in a fixed mindset sort of way, I would always compare myself to Katelyn. It's like, well, I don't have 140,000 people on my Instagram. Like, who's going to hear my voice? And it's like the 26 learners in the studios hear my voice, and then all of their parents. And like, those are the people that I'm pouring into and impacting.
And the first time we had a parent meeting, you got up. Do you know where I'm going with this? In Studio B, and he starts talking to the parent. And we've only been in school a few weeks. We're just getting to know these families and these learners. But like, there was something special last year with our founding families. Like it truly was kind of magical. Like, and Michael gets in front of these parents and he starts to talk about what they're doing in the studio, and like he just can't help but cry. He's like crying, and I look around. There's parents that are just like, oh my gosh, like, and you until recently view that as a weakness, but we've had parents be like, do you know how many parents would give anything to have a guide or someone pouring into their child that's in tears over how much they care about what happens in this space? Like, that is not a weakness, that is a strength. And you've leaned into that so much this year. I just feel like we are still, I don't even know if we can really explain the drastic shift in our life, in our marriage, and our work dynamic, because it has gone from me being the heavy lifter and him being our life person at home to me heavy lifting, but it's not the same, and doing life, and he's gone, and we miss each other now, and we like never. This is where I'm getting emotional, but like we've never experienced that. Like, we were talking about our summer session last night on a call. Like, are we going to do summer school? And I'm like crying on a call, being like, I really want him to be home, and I've never said that. And it's really powerful for us.
Kind of wish you'd leave sometimes.
It's really powerful because like they know our story, and they know that like we worked together for 10 years and we were always in the house together. There's so much tension, and it's cool because the tension we feel about the demands that are on us with this new responsibility, it's also creating this really beautiful season in our marriage and in our family. And so it's like the hard things are producing the new growth, and the tension is producing, which is everything in life. Tension breeds something new. So would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
Man, I love that for you guys. And that's like an update for me, because I call Michael now. He's too busy to call me back. He's got a 9 to 5 now.
You've got a 9 to 5.
No, I'm just kidding.
Call me after 3:15.
Yeah, that's right. I got to call him after.
You called me today during pickup. I'm like, you might... Easton, get in the car.
Easton, you're next. Yeah, that's really encouraging to hear, because that as someone I've known and loved for a while, it's been cool to see, for me as just your bro, to have the same sort of thought of like, Michael is a gift to the world. What's that going to look like when he hits the gas pedal? Mm-hmm. It's cool to see that Acton is that for you guys
it's the
right
gas
now.
pedal.
Yeah.
And there's no slowing down.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about what's next, or is that not a...
Well, we're going to...
Is that not a public topic?
We're going to outgrow our space in about a year and a half.
Yeah, how many...
Yeah, based on the drain field, which is awful, we can hold 60 learners, and so we're at 26.
But our parking lot would say otherwise.
Yeah, we're having to do drop-offs and may have to do staggered drop-offs next year. But yeah, just starting the process, we learned going through the county that it is a process, and you might
to get their
allow,
permissions and
6
site
months,
plans.
and maybe some rezoning and things like that. Just takes time.
Let me just paint a picture. We have this tiny little property, and we have a gravel parking lot, and the excavation bill to appease the POD for the county was $167,000 to grade a gravel parking lot.
Yeah, you gotta see this parking lot.
We tried. It's not even that great, but that's like...
What was it with they laid out, their excavator or one of the contractors laid out handicap parking spaces or a sidewalk or something. Yeah. And then the county came out and measured, and it was literally like...
Centimeters off.
And they're like, you got to rip this up. You got to redo it.
It was awful.
And it was literally like quarter of an inch off, and they had to redo it.
It's not big enough.
And we learned so much
over there.
Yes,
like
but we learn now.
That's right.
Next time we do it, we learn you don't want B1. You don't ever want to be.
You don't want to be
property.
zoned B1.
No, we want to be A2 with a conditional use permit. Mm-hmm. I feel like we say we don't know anything. We've learned a lot.
We have learned a lot.
And so we're looking at
journey.
Yes, we're looking at
right.
land. It's hard. Where we're looking for land is where all of Richmond wants to be. Everyone wants to be in Eastern Goochland. And so just looking at property and dreaming about like where are we going to end up? But also like we're on the clock. Like we should have had land by now.
But also from a business perspective, trying to be wise with it. And a lot of the land that is for sale is large chunks of land. And so we're like, what else could we do with this? And just trying
can
to
we
be
do
wise
event?
in
Can we
that.
build a space for events? And
I think a micro community that's part of a bigger property that's connected to the school would be
that would
interesting.
be-
It would be
because
really-
of the community you guys are building.
parents
with the
want to
parents.
move.
Yeah,
Yeah, if we could buy a big
that would
chunk
be
of land
cool.
and subdivide
Your kids
it.
walk to the school
Yes.
in the community.
We just looked
Maybe
at a
there's
property
a farmer's
about
field in there.
a farmer's field, a community garden.
Yeah.
I mean,
Communal brick oven too.
Yeah.
Communal
Yes.
bakery.
so yeah, we'll see. That is the next step, and all the learners that started year one all have siblings coming. So like we almost have a studio that's like 75% full just
from
from siblings.
In the first, that'll be year 3.
Year 3.
Yeah.
So doubled in size every year, and that seems to be the trajectory. And now we're like, do we do an open house in January? We're already going to be over capacity. So should we really market to people we don't have space for? And yeah, it's a wild ride. I don't know what we're going to do, but
We'll be excited to hear.
yeah.
All right, to close out our time, we just close with a few lightning round questions. Brevity is appreciated but not required.
Sure.
And Buddy always kicks it off. So go ahead, Bud.
Okay, this has become a tradition on the podcast, and I think it's applicable because while you guys for years didn't own a place-based business, although you
Right.
do now, you were on your feet a lot shooting weddings. So what's your go-to footwear?
It's great. Go ahead.
I wear Allbirds is like my comfort shoe, and then if I'm dressing up for wedding days, we have these Cole Haan. I forget what they're called.
Oh, with like the Nike
Yeah,
insole.
yeah. They're like
the air cushion insole, but they look like a dress
they're
shoe.
like sneakers, but they look like a dress shoe.
Yeah.
I have Rothy's, which have stood the test of time, but have zero support. So when I can't walk when I'm 75, it's because I shot 300 weddings in flat shoes, but they look cute. So
Everybody wins.
yeah.
Buddy said you all bought a Tesla together. Buddy said he was there.
I felt like
It's
I bought a
partly
Tesla
his
too.
Tesla.
I got to ride up. It was fun.
What's your favorite feature on the Tesla?
Man.
What model? X, right?
Yeah, we have
X?
a Model
All right.
X.
Favorite
Business
feature?
expense, not financial advice, but it weighs over 6,000 pounds. So,
Ride it off.
yeah, I think the Falcon Wing doors are, I mean, still to this day, people are like standing, like watching the door come up, and they're like, that is so cool. I'm like, I know. And like Buddy was just talking about, I would never start a school without technology. Like the whole over the air updates. I remember when we test drove one, he was like, this is going to be the worst version of the car you ever own. Because like every couple of months they're releasing new updates. And so, yeah, it's just,
It like updates itself while we sleep. You get in the car and there's a new feature in the morning.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
just keeps updating itself.
Yeah, that's wild.
And it's almost old. I mean, it's 2018. It's getting up there.
But it doesn't feel old because it's continuing to update.
Yeah.
The tech is.
But because it was a business purchase, I needed to take ownership by it before the end of the year. And so that's when we found one in Maryland, and Buddy and I took the train up.
train
And yeah.
I got to feel like I got a Tesla too.
That's how Buddy
All I
described
needed
it.
was
Wait,
one day.
no, not a funny story, a kind of sad story. Do you remember we had a friend pick us up at the train station? We're driving, and we're
yes.
turning into the dealership, and someone had just purchased
Oh, yes.
like a Model S and had pulled out of the parking lot and got T-boned. Like,
Right out of the dealership.
Seconds into driving off the lot with their new car.
and we're like, did that just happen? And the guys in the shop were like, yeah, that they just picked it up and it just got in a wreck. And I'm like, buddy, make sure we don't do that.
Yes.
It was. We were so nervous.
Oh,
leaving.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Less
next.
can I just
Oh, yeah,
just
yeah.
personal selfish, we just had that happen with we just totaled 2 delivery vehicles
No.
Oh yes.
in 2 weeks
No.
from deer.
Oh,
It's
the
a terrible.
deer.
So I know the T-bone.
So maybe
out of the
a
lot.
Tesla's in your future.
Yeah, maybe
Once you
so.
settle these insurance.
This is first. Could be
There's
an
a charging
upgrade.
station here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was actually a deal breaker.
Tesla bread delivery vehicle.
Shucks. Be epic.
Saving the environment and stuff.
Did you have one? I have one.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I'm curious who inspires you or where you derive inspiration for your business. Maybe it's not the Acton business, but your business. And then, Michael, for you in the school. But where's your inspiration coming from?
That's a
That's
deep,
deep.
question.
That's a deep. Yeah.
That's not a lightning round.
That's a.
In one word. No, just kidding.
Does it have to be a person? You
Well,
think,
no.
or
Well,
no,
it
or
could
anything?
Could be, yeah.
Lightning round has very few rules.
I think I'm inspired by freedom. Like I'm constantly thinking through, like, what would this contribute to our freedom in our family, and I find inspiration in, like, I could do this and scale this, and it would mean this, financially or with time or what we could do with our children. It just, like, freedom seems inspiring to me. But what's interesting is that we say we've lost a lot of our freedom
Yeah, that is
this
fascinating.
year. And I just have had this realization recently that what if it's not about freedom? What if it's about your purpose and your calling? Because we are so happy. We're stretched to our limits, but we feel so fulfilled. And I would say you feel more fulfilled now than you have really in our entire marriage with what you're doing with your days. Right. And yet all of the freedom of our time has been stripped away. And so it's this reevaluation of, like,
Not all,
but a lot of it has been. So I'm just learning that, like, I don't think it's ever been about freedom to, like, just do what you want. It's more about, like, what are you called to and how are you supposed to change the world? That's where true freedom of your heart kind of comes from. I'm just redefining freedom in a lot of ways. And so
I think for me, the concept of mindset is very inspirational. I think questioning people's mindset or just getting curious with people, like, what do you mean by that? Like, even if it's with a learner, with their parent. I read a lot of books by Simon Sinek, and just the way that he thinks about the world, I'm like, gosh, like, that makes so much sense. Like, why do I make up that something is true when it may not be true or whatever? And it is just a fascinating concept to really wrestle with people and just be curious with them, and not from of, like, I think you're wrong or I'm going to prove you wrong, but that's, you really think about it that way? Like, this is what I'm experiencing or what I make up. And so, yeah, just having those conversations is what I get to do on a daily basis. And so that's really inspirational for me.
And I would say taking it to the next level is, like, I think this year has really challenged us because Acton is not a Christian school. It challenges us as parents, and it's inspiring, I think, to see everything that they're doing at the school. But then when you add a faith component into it, it's inspiring to be like, there's not two worlds here. Like, we're finding ways to combine how God's using Acton, how God's using mindset, how God is using what we're learning through coaching and all to, like, really form us as parents into who we were called to be through these businesses. And so it's just all full circle. So
Love it.
yeah.
Well, you guys have been a gift to have on the podcast. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I had a few parting thoughts I wanted to share that I was reflecting on, just our friendship over the years, doing business things. Actually, I guess sometimes together, but often just sort of like in parallel.
Yeah.
Sometimes in different spaces, sometimes in the same. And there's things that have come to the fore of us naturally that I would just encourage anybody who's entrepreneurial to consider these traits, because my take is, like, we kind of stumbled upon these and they've just been such gold for us. So one thing as I reflect, and if you guys have any thoughts on these, please feel free to interject, but I just wanted to share this. So one thing is we have, we have sort of like decided there's going to be no envy between the four of us. And that's not to say like we've never maybe envied one another at times or something, but it's a decision to not live that way. And I think that's really freeing. It sounds maybe ethereal or maybe even like basic, but it's actually really freeing in our friendship. So we can talk about things without, like when we went to go buy the Tesla, I'm so glad we asked that. That's such a great
Potentially
example.
Envious time.
Yeah, potentially, What my best friend's like just gonna write a check for a Tesla, and I guess, like I could have if I processed it that way, but I decidedly had no envy. Like I said, I felt like I was getting a Tesla too. This is so fun. Like
your wins are our wins.
Yeah, exactly. This is great.
And I don't think there's never been a conversation where we said, hey, if we're going to be doing life together and business together, like this has got to be a rule. It's just been this gift, this unspoken gift that I think has made it work so well. Yeah. Like I remember looking at you guys being like, you bought this epic property and it's just going to make money for you and you don't even have to be there. Whereas I got to show with my face all the time.
There was some jealousy on
There was some jealousy. No.
Well, that's what I mean. There's a decided, it's not like we're without sin all of a sudden.
Sure.
But there's this choice to not envy one another. Right. And I think like we stumbled upon that, but for any entrepreneur listening, it's a gift to find that in a friend or in maybe another married couple. Daniel and I have been able to cultivate that with the four of us, with our wives.
And I think you said it, it's a choice, and it's something that you have to actively pursue and keep in check, because it's easy to slip into, well, gosh, that's nice for them, like lucky them.
Right, yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
And like taking it a step deeper, it's like when that creeps up, it's an invitation, an opportunity to feel like, why? There's normally just an insecurity about yourself that's triggering I don't feel okay that they have something so great. Well, like, what am I believing about myself that's triggering that thing? It's just, I feel like it's all kind of full circle. The coaching experience we've all had together I think, plays into that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I credit this next one to Michael because I feel like he originated this, but this is a more practical one, which is that we'll often use the word we when we start talking about a business idea. Daniel and I have started doing this too. And this is one you have to be very careful about because you can suddenly be, inserting yourself into somebody else's idea. So you need to be very tactful with this one. But I think, like done in the right context with the right expectation of no envy, it's just a fun way because you will use the word we to me, Michael, or I might use it with you, like, like if you're looking at a new property for Acton.
Yeah, we should buy that property. And by we, I mean you should.
And by we, I mean you. And like, like you might call me and be like, what do you think we should do about the county? And like, I'm shoulder to shoulder with you in it, even though it's not my property. This isn't my project.
Right.
Yes.
But I have the same, there's like this level of buy-in that we can just be on the same page with.
Buddy did drive to Richmond to come to one of our county meetings to sit through a vote with us.
Oh, that's so sweet. I mean, you've been to, that was before kids.
Oh, yeah.
Michael came out to a few county meetings out this way too for different projects we were doing. Yeah, I think that can be a gift. So that's like an easy, practical one. Cultivating with fellow entrepreneurs when you're brainstorming about each other's ideas, the use of the word we kind of puts you shoulder to shoulder. I think something too is this one's, I guess, really ethereal, but I think it's just worth noting like how God's put people in each of our lives at such unique times.
Yes.
And we've kind of been able to share those connections with each other. And I think that's really special. Certainly not all of the connections by any means, but again, Daniel and I have experienced the same thing with the right friends. You can be such a gift to each other as entrepreneurs when you're just willing to share connections that you have. And God's going to bring people into your life that are, the timing's perfect. I was trying to think back about this, but like I think about, pretty sure it was Cole, right, who helped you with your first launch.
Yeah.
Like meeting him and the timing of that. Just God bringing people into your life at the right time. Us meeting the folks that we bought Big Spring from.
Yes.
Norman, Georgia. We've talked about them on the podcast. And we ended up going to their like their
Yeah, the
house
river
once
house.
and met, you know,
Oh.
got to spend an amazing evening with them, gleaning wisdom.
One kid. We both had one kid.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that we actually probably got a lot of conversation.
Yeah.
In.
So yeah, for any entrepreneurs listening, I think that's a real gift. Don't
Yes.
circle the wagons, and that's something we've again just naturally cultivated in our friendship, and that I've been intentionally looking to sow the seeds of elsewhere in other friendships. So. Thank you guys for the gift that you are again to me, to Daniel, to anybody listening to this podcast, and to my
Jill.
wife Jill, of course.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to you guys. I think Katelyn and I have talked to Buddy a lot about this idea of this podcast, and not this specific structure. I think what you guys have done is awesome, and the perspective is amazing. We talk a lot about providing a seat at the table. Like, you guys are inviting so many people to the table
Yes.
of, like, we think about when we go out to dinner with Buddy and Jill and the things we talk about. We're like, so many people need to just be sitting here hearing this conversation.
Right.
And you're allowing them to hear that conversation, which is just such a gift and an amazing opportunity. So thank you for letting us be a part of it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Absolutely, you're welcome
Thank you
back.
so much.
Yeah, come back. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Where can we find us? You can
Talk
find
to our
us
social media girl.
Information about Acton West End.
Acton Academy, westend.com. And then CaitlinJames.com is the other half. I think that's it. Right? You can Instagram for both businesses, but yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I'm so excited we're in the brick and mortar club.
You're in.
We're in.
Yes. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.